5 a.m., my daughter-in-law Zara knocked on my bedroom door like she was the queen of this house. I opened my eyes slowly, still half asleep, and she said, "I'm going on a short trip with my friend. You'll need to make dinner for my 25 friends tonight. They'll be here by 7. She didn't ask. She ordered. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and followed her to the kitchen. She stood there, arms crossed, watching me like a supervisor. I started chopping onions, boiling water, pulling out pots. She didn't even say thank you, just scrolled through her phone, then left with a loud slam of the front door. But the moment she walked out, I stopped. Before I begin, comment below and let me know from which city you're watching our channel. We love seeing how far our stories travel. I didn't touch another onion. I didn't stir the pot. I just stood there, staring at the empty kitchen counter. That's when I decided, tonight, the table will be empty, just like the respect she's shown me all these years. Before I go on, I want to ask you watching this, please comment below and tell me from which city you're watching our channel. We love seeing how far our stories travel now. Let me tell you how it all began. Zara married my son 3 years ago. At first, I was happy. She was young, educated, stylish. I thought she'd bring joy into our home. But slowly, things changed. She started treating me like a maid, not a mother-in-law, not even a human being. She'd throw parties and expect me to cook. She'd invite her friends and tell them I loved serving people. She'd laugh behind my back, call me old-fashioned, say I was lucky to live in her house. Her house. I raised my son in this house. I planted the lemon tree in the backyard. I painted the walls with my own hands. But now, I was just the woman who made tea and stayed out of the way. I never complained. I never shouted. I just kept quiet, because I believed that silence was strength. But today, something snapped. 20-5 guests. No warning. No help. Just a command. I looked at the clock. 5:30 a.m. I walked to my room, picked up my old phone, and sat down with a notebook. I started writing names, not of her friends but of mine. Women I knew from the neighborhood, women who had been treated like shadows in their own homes. Then I called the community center nearby. I asked if I could book the hall for tonight, just a small gathering. I said, for senior women, free dinner, no RSVP needed. They said yes. I smiled. Then I called a few of Zara's friends. I didn't say who I was. I just told them the dinner was canceled. Family emergency. Zara wouldn't be home. Some of them believed me, some didn't, but I didn't care. I just wanted that table to be empty. I went back to the kitchen and made a small pot of rice, just enough to make it look like I was preparing something. I left a few plates out. I even lit a few candles, but I didn't cook. I didn't serve. I waited because tonight, the silence would speak louder than any dish I could make. I didn't leave the kitchen that morning. I stayed there, moving slowly, pretending to prepare for the feast Zara had demanded. I took out the big pots, the serving trays, the spice jars. I even soaked lentils in water, just to make it look real. But inside me, something was boiling hotter than any stove. I wasn't just angry. I was tired. Tired of being invisible in my own home. Tired of being treated like a servant. Tired of watching Zara walk around like she owned everything, while I was expected to smile and obey. I looked at the clock. 6:15 a.m. I picked up my phone again and called the community center. The woman who answered was kind. I told her I wanted to host a small dinner for senior women in the area, just a few neighbors. Nothing fancy. She said the hall was available from 6 to 9 p.m. I booked it. Then I called my friend Shabbat. She's 72, lives 2 streets away, and has a laugh that could shake the walls. I told her about the dinner. She said, "Finally, you're doing something for yourself." I called 5 more women. All of them said yes. Then I made one more call. This one was quiet. I didn't give my name. I just said, "Zara's dinner is canceled. Family emergency. She won't be home tonight." I called 5 of her closest friends. I knew their names from the way Zara bragged about them. My bestie Sana, my fashion queen Hira, my party planner Mirish. I didn't care if they believed me. I just wanted confusion. I hung up and looked around the kitchen. It smelled like cumin and garlic, but nothing was cooking. I opened the fridge and took out a few vegetables. I chopped them slowly, placed them in bowls, and left them uncovered on the counter, just enough to make it look like I was halfway through. Then I went to my room and changed into my best clothes. Not fancy, just clean and soft. A light blue shalwar kameez with tiny white flowers. I brushed my hair and tied it neatly. I looked in the mirror and saw someone I hadn't seen in years. Me, not the cook, not the helper, just me by noon. I had made a small pot of rice and 1 dish of chicken curry. I didn't touch the rest. I placed the rice in the serving bowl and covered it with foil. I arranged the curry in a dish and sprinkled coriander on top. It looked presentable, but it wasn't enough for 25 people, not even close. I set the dining table with plates and glasses. I lit 2 candles and placed them in the center. I folded napkins and placed them beside each plate. I even put Zara's favorite flower vase in the middle. Then I sat down and waited. At 5 p.m., I left the house quietly and walked to the community center. The hall was already buzzing. Shabana was there, telling jokes. Farida had brought homemade some. Nargis had brought her famous key. We laughed, we ate, we shared stories. I felt alive. For the first time in years, I wasn't serving, I was being served. I wasn't background, I was center stage. At 6:45 p.m., I returned home. The house was quiet. The candles were still burning. The rice was untouched. The curry was cold. I sat in the corner of the living room, near the window, and waited. At 7:10 p.m., Zara walked in. She was wearing a bright red dress, heels clicking on the floor, her hair curled and her makeup perfect. She looked around and frowned. "Where's the food?" she asked. I didn't answer. She walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and saw the untouched vegetables. She opened the oven, empty. She opened the pots, barely anything. She turned to me, her voice sharp. "What is this? Where's the dinner?" I looked at her and said, "I made what I could." She stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. "You had all day." I nodded. "Yes, and I used it well." She didn't understand. "Not yet." Then the doorbell rang. She rushed to open it. It was Sana. Behind her were 2 more friends. They walked in, looked around, and asked, "Where is everyone?" Zara blinked. "They're coming. Maybe traffic." They waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. No one else came. Zara started calling people, one by one. Most didn't answer. A few said they thought the dinner was cancelled. One said she had other plans. Another said she wasn't feeling well. Zara's face turned pale. She looked at me again. "Did you do something?" I smiled. "I made dinner. Just not for you." She stepped closer. "What does that mean?" I stood up slowly. "It means I'm done being your cook, your cleaner, your background. Tonight, I fed women who respect me, who see me." She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I walked past her, picked up my cup of tea, and sat back down. She stood there, surrounded by empty plates, cold curry, and silence. And I sat there, surrounded by peace. Zara stood frozen in the middle of the living room. Her red dress shimmered under the ceiling light, but her face had lost all color. She looked around at the empty chairs, the untouched plates, the cold food, and the flickering candles that now felt more like mockery than decoration. She dialed another number, then another. Her voice grew louder with each call. "What do you mean you thought it was cancelled?" "No, I didn't send any message." "Who told you that?" She turned to me, eyes blazing. "Did you call them?" I didn't answer. I just took another sip of tea. She marched over, heels clicking like gunshots. "Did you call my friends and tell them not to come?" I looked up at her. "I called my friends. They came." She blinked. "What?" "I hosted a dinner tonight," I said calmly. "Just not for you." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked at the table again, then back at me. "You ruined everything." I stood up slowly. "No, Zara. I gave you a taste of what you've been serving me for years." She scoffed. "You're being dramatic." I walked past her and picked up the flower vase from the table. "Do you remember last Eid, when you invited your friends and told me to stay in my room because I didn't match the vibe?" She didn't respond. "Or your birthday last year, when you made me cook for 30 people and then told them I was just the house help?" Still silence. I placed the vase back on the shelf. I stayed quiet. I smiled. I served. But tonight, I chose myself. She sat down on the couch, her hands shaking. "You embarrassed me." I nodded. "Yes, just once." After years of being humiliated, she looked at the door, hoping someone else might still show up, but no one did. The house was quiet. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock and the soft hum of the fridge. Then my son walked in. He looked tired. He had just returned from work, unaware of the storm waiting inside. Zara jumped up. "Your mother ruined my dinner party." He looked at me, then at the table. "What happened?" "She didn't cook. She didn't tell me. She sabotaged everything." I didn't say a word. I walked to the shelf and picked up a small black recorder. I pressed play. Zara's voice filled the room. "She's so slow. I swear, I only keep her here because your husband won't let her go. She's like a ghost in the house. I make her cook because it's the only thing she's good for. Then another clip. She thinks she's part of the family. It's hilarious. I tell my friends she's the maid. They believe me. My son's face changed. His eyes darkened. His jaw clenched. Zara rushed forward. That's not me. That's fake. I pressed pause. It's your voice. Your words. He looked at her. Is this how you talk about my mother? She stammered. I was joking. They know I didn't mean it. He turned to me. Why didn't you tell me? I smiled sadly. Because I thought you'd see it yourself. But you were always too busy. He sat down, head in his hands. I'm sorry, Amy. Zara tried again. She's manipulating you. She planned this whole thing to make me look bad. I looked at her. No, Zara, you did that yourself. She screamed. You're just bitter. I nodded. Yes, bitter, but not broken. She stormed off to her room, slamming the door behind her. My son sat quietly. I didn't know it was this bad. I placed the recorder on the table. Now you do. He looked at the empty plates. Did you really not cook? I made rice and curry. Enough for two. He smiled faintly. You knew no one would come. I nodded. I hoped. He stood up and walked to the kitchen. Let's eat, Amy. We sat together at the table. Just the two of us. No noise. No guests. Just peace. As we ate, I felt something shift. Not just in the house, but in me. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't just the woman behind the stove. I was the woman who made the table empty, filled her own plate with dignity. The next morning, the house was quiet. Zara didn't come out of her room. My son left early for work, barely saying a word. I sat in the kitchen, sipping tea, watching the sunlight crawl across the floor tiles. It felt like the house had exhaled after holding its breath for too long. I didn't feel victorious. I felt calm. But I knew it wasn't over. Around noon, Zara finally emerged. Her eyes were puffy, her hair undone. She didn't look at me, just walked straight to the fridge, opened it, and slammed it shut. There's nothing to eat, she muttered. I didn't respond. She turned to me. You think you won. I looked at her. I didn't play a game. She scoffed. You humiliated me in front of my friends. I stirred my tea. You've been humiliating me for years. I just stopped accepting it. She sat down across from me. You're trying to turn my husband against me? I leaned forward. No. I'm trying to remind him who raised him. She didn't speak for a while. Then she said, You're not innocent. You planned everything. I nodded. Yes. I planned peace. For myself. She stood up. You're selfish. I smiled. For once, she stormed off again. But this time, she didn't slam the door. Later that evening, my son came home. He looked tired, but his eyes searched for me. I was in the garden, watering the lemon tree I had planted years ago. He walked over and stood beside me. Amy. I turned to him. Yes, Beta. He hesitated. I listened to the recordings again. I can't believe I missed all of it. I placed the watering can down. You were busy building a life. I was busy holding it together. He sat on the bench. I feel ashamed. I sat beside him. Don't just learn. He looked at the tree. Zara says, You're trying to break our marriage. I shook my head. I'm trying to fix our home. He nodded slowly. I've decided something. I waited. She needs to move out for a while, just until things settle. I didn't react. I just listened. I'll talk to her tonight, he said. She can stay with her parents. Maybe some space will help. I looked at him. Are you sure? He nodded. I want you to feel safe here. Respected. I placed my hand on his. That's all I ever wanted. That night, Zara packed a small bag. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just left quietly. My son drove her to her parents' house. When he returned, he sat with me in the living room. I don't know what happens next, he said. I smiled. Neither do I, but tonight, the house feels lighter. He leaned back. I'm sorry it took me so long. I looked at him. You came home. That's enough. The next few days were peaceful. I cooked when I wanted to. I sat in the garden. I called my friends. I even started planning another dinner this time, not in secret. I called the community center again, booked the hall for next Friday. I invited 10 women, told them to bring one dish each. No speeches, no drama, just food and laughter. I felt alive. One afternoon, I was arranging cushions in the living room when my son walked in with a small box. What's this? I asked. He smiled. A gift. I opened it slowly. Inside was a new phone. Sleek, modern, easy to use. I thought you might need something better, he said. I laughed. You mean something that doesn't freeze every time I open what? He nodded. Exactly. I hugged him. Thank you. He looked at me. You're changing. I smiled. I'm returning. That evening, I sat on the balcony, watching the sunset. The sky was orange and soft, like a warm blanket. I thought about all the years I had spent in silence, all the dinners I had cooked, all the tears I had swallowed, and I thought about the empty table. It wasn't just a table, it was a message that said, I exist. I matter. I will not be erased. If you're still watching this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support means everything. And if you've ever felt invisible, know this: you're not alone. Sometimes, all it takes is one quiet act to change everything. The following week felt like spring, even though the calendar said it was still summer. The house was quieter, lighter. I could hear the birds again. I could hear my own thoughts. I didn't wake up to orders or complaints. I woke up to the sound of my own breath. I started spending more time in the garden. The lemon tree was blooming. I trimmed the roses, watered the jasmine, and even planted a few new seeds. It felt good to care for something that didn't expect me to serve it, just grew with love. On Friday, the day of our community dinner, I woke up early not because someone told me to, but because I wanted to. I made my favorite dish, a loudest, slow-cooked, rich, and full of flavor. I packed it carefully and dressed in a soft green outfit with a matching I looked in the mirror and smiled. I looked like myself. At 5 p.m., I walked to the community center with my dish in hand. The hall was already buzzing. Shabana had brought Farida had made Nargis brought her famous Kia again. There was laughter, music, and the smell of spices in the air. We sat together, 10 women, each with her own story. Some had been ignored, some had been used, some had been silenced, but tonight, we were loud, we were joyful, we were seen. I stood up and said a few words. Nothing dramatic, just honest. I spent years cooking for people who never said thank you. Tonight, I cook for women who understand what it means to be invisible and what it means to rise. They clapped, some cried. One woman hugged me and said, "You gave us more than food, you gave us a voice." I didn't know what to say. I just smiled and held her hand after dinner. We cleaned up together. No one ordered anyone around. No one acted superior. We were a team, a sisterhood. When I returned home, the house was still quiet. My son was reading in the living room. He looked up and smiled. "How was the dinner?" "Beautiful," I said. He nodded. "You look happy." "I am." He paused. Zara called. I didn't react. "She wants to come back." I sat down. "And?" I told her not yet. I looked at him. "Why?" He sighed. "Because I'm still learning how to be a better son, and she needs to learn how to be a better human." I didn't say anything. I just placed my hand on his shoulder. The next day, I received a message on my new phone. It was from Zara. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I was selfish. I hope one day you can forgive me." I stared at the screen for a long time. Forgiveness is a strange thing. It doesn't come with a switch. It comes with time, with healing, with truth. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to the kitchen and made tea. I sat in the garden and watched the lemon tree sway in the wind. I thought about all the women who had sat at my table over the years. Some were kind, some were cruel, some never saw me, but I saw them. I remembered every face, every word, every silence. And I remembered the night the table stayed empty. That night changed everything. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. It was powerful. It was mine. If you're still watching this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Velvet Revenge. Your support helps us share more stories like this, stories of dignity, strength, and quiet justice. And tell us, have you ever taken a stand in silence? We'd love to hear your story. A few weeks passed. The house had settled into a new rhythm. My son was more present. He'd come home early, help with groceries, even ask me what I wanted for dinner. Not what I could make, what I wanted. That question alone felt like a gift. I didn't hear from Zara again. No calls, no messages, just silence. And honestly, I didn't mind. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't hoping for a change. I was simply living. One afternoon, I was folding laundry when the doorbell rang. I opened it and found a young woman standing there, holding a notebook. "Are you Mrs. Rahat?" she asked. "Yes," I said cautiously. "I'm doing a small project for our college," she explained. "We're collecting stories from elder women in the community. Someone told me you hosted a dinner for senior ladies last month. They said it was powerful." I smiled. "It was." She asked if she could interview me. I invited her in, made tea, and told her everything. Not just about the dinner but about the years before it, the quiet pain, the invisible labor, the moment I chose to stop being silent. She listened, took notes, and thanked me with tears in her eyes. "You're brave," she said. I shook my head. "I'm just tired of being quiet." That evening, I sat in the garden again. The lemon tree had grown taller. Its branches reached out like arms, open and strong. I thought about all the women who had sat at my table, the ones who had laughed, cried, shared stories, the ones who had reminded me that I wasn't alone. I picked a lemon and held it in my hand. It was small, firm, and fragrant. I closed my eyes and remembered the first time I planted that tree. My husband had helped me dig the soil. My son had watered it every day. It had taken years to grow. Just like me, the next morning, I received another message from Zara. "I understand now. I was wrong. I treated you badly. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to learn. I want to change." I stared at the screen. I didn't reply, not because I was angry but because I needed time. Forgiveness isn't a door you open just because someone knocks. It's a garden you tend slowly, with care. Later that day, I went to the market. I bought fresh vegetables, spices, and a new set of serving bowls. Not for anyone else, for myself. I wanted to cook something special, not to impress, just to enjoy. I made palak paneer raita and warm chapatis. I set the table for one, lit a candle, played soft music, and I ate slowly, savoring every bite. It was the best meal I'd had in years, because it was mine. That night, I sat down and wrote in my old diary. I hadn't touched it in ages, but the words came easily. I used to think revenge had to be loud, a fight, a scream, a storm. But now I know it can be quiet. It can be a table that stays empty. It can be a woman who chooses herself. I closed the diary and placed it back in the drawer. The next weekend, I hosted another dinner. This time, even more women came. Some brought their daughters. Some brought stories. One woman stood up and said, "We should do this every month." We agreed. We called it the Empty Table Circle. Not because we had nothing, but because we had filled our own plates first. If this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe to Velvet Revenge. And tell us, have you ever seen justice served quietly? We'd love to hear your story. Because sometimes, the most powerful revenge is peace.